Welcome to the Me and Pops Unplugged podcast, where authenticity and honest conversations are valued. Unplug from the world and vibe with us. Enjoy the show. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Me and Pops Unplugged podcast, where authenticity is everything here and real conversations are valued. We appreciate you guys tuning back in. So I just want to take a minute. Thank you to everyone that showed love last week, whether it was a like, whether it was a comment, any type of support. Seriously, we appreciate you guys. And really, our goal is to just to provide as much value as possible moving forward. You know, we're upgrading in the process. This is a conversation, different conversation every week. So we appreciate you guys for real. If you get a chance, if our content resonates with you at all, we would appreciate a comment, subscribe, everything. That goes a long way with growing this channel. So thank you. So, gonna get into the juicy part here. So, hot take. Men are told to open up, but nobody tells us what actually happens when we do. So, with that being said, Pops, I'm gonna open this one up to you. Were men in your generation allowed to be vulnerable at all?
It's funny. Absolutely not. Um, I was born in the 70s, obviously. I'm old. Yeah, we know. But I pretty much grew up in the 80s. And in those days, certain things you didn't talk about. You didn't talk about feelings, you didn't talk about emotions. I grew up in the era of, walk it off, shake it off, rub some dirt on it. We didn't really get into a whole lot of, how you're feeling. And, that's came years later. And, still like now that's a popular thing, people's emotions and all. But back then we didn't deal with that. Like if you went to your parents or, had an issue, like I'm feeling this way, I'm kind of sad, I'm depressed, and like that's what they told you. They were like, "Oh, come on, like shake it off. You're a man, man up."
Toughen up,
So
kid. Get
yeah,
over it.
so yeah, we weren't raised in that era. We weren't raised that way where it was kind of taboo to talk about things like that. And to be completely honest with you, I feel like that was a whole lot of the reasons for troubles I had later on in life. So I definitely think it's something that needs to be talked about. People need to express and not suppress their feelings and emotions because just like with anything, pressure bust pipes. Well, it's the same thing with a person. You have all that internal and, all that stuff that you're not releasing. Eventually you're going to, explode or crash out, as they say, nowadays. So, yeah, I mean, that wasn't something that we talked about. I didn't know any better because that's the way I was brought up. So I felt like, especially for a boy, as from a man's perspective, like boys especially, like we didn't talk about things like that, especially in the household. And then to go outside, if I went outside and I'm trying to tell, another kid, say I'm 10, 12 years old, and I go outside and tell another one of my friends at 10, 12 years old, like I got these feelings and I'm depressed, they're going to look at you like, the hell's wrong with you? Because they were raised the same way. So it's like, yeah, you didn't talk about those things back in those days.
No, that's enlightening. And I mean, even though the generation is different and, I'm obviously a little bit younger, I mean, pretty much same experience. And it's crazy to me how you said that was pretty much the root cause, if not a main contributing factor as to why you had so many issues. Because it's not about like, opening up and be like, oh, I'm crying to everybody. Like that's what people think. It's not about that. It's really just having self-awareness and being like, hey, I am experiencing like some different emotions. Like, how do I interpret this within myself and deal with it correctly to where it becomes a healthy thing, not detrimental where I have to keep it in and it's eating away and then I'm acting out and doing all this crazy shit. So no,
Yeah,
100%. I mean, you said pressure burst pipes, but even having a sales background too, pressure makes diamonds. I mean,
absolutely.
that's two kind of, opposite.
But also, those diamonds have to be refined and everything. So, with that pressure,
There's a
you have to learn
process.
you have to learn how to deal with it and refine those things about yourself.
Right.
And that's a lot easier said than done as an adult. But when you're a kid, like I said, growing up in that era, when you're a kid, and especially like for myself, not putting anybody on blast like my parents or anything, but once I was 6 years old, I didn't have a mother and a father in the house. Mom and dad got divorced. And, people always talk about like, you can raise a child in a one parent household. And, I wound up having a stepfather and stuff, but it's not the same. It really isn't. And I know this from experience because a lot of that stuff, that I was dealing with, even if you only have one parent you could go to for that emotional stuff, you know, at least it's better than none. And again, it's no shade on anyone. My mom, I predominantly grew up with my mom, but it's no shade on her. It's just that there were things, and I think that's kind of maybe the way she was raised, where they didn't talk about those things, and we kind of touched on that last week. It's like generational trauma. Like she
Right.
didn't talk about that as a child in her household, so we didn't talk about that as for me as a child in our household, and it just perpetuates itself and carries forward. But what I was saying is, I had a lot of stuff like within the household, some traumas and some unhealthy situations. Even though my mom was a good mother, there was some unhealthy stuff in the household without getting into detail. And I was kind of going through things at that time where, I didn't understand my mom and dad getting divorced. You start that kids internalize that. And I started thinking, like, was it me? And, my dad went on and had another relationship. And there were so many feelings that went into that. And then now my mom, my stepdad comes into the picture. So now she's, her new relationship is new. And we know how, when relationships are new, she's putting a lot of energy into that. And now my dad's off and he's putting energy into his relationship. He's not in the house. And at that time, I was an only child for many years. So there was a lot of different feelings that I was going through and didn't know how to express myself. And as we said, like that stuff was internalized and there's like this inner turmoil and pressure built up inside of me. And like I was saying, I feel like that kind of manifested itself in negative areas later because, I couldn't talk about it. So I was looking for a release or an outlet and, wound up getting involved with a lot of the street stuff and the drugs and selling drugs and, kind of hanging with the wrong people because that I was looking for a way to deal with that inner turmoil and that trauma and those feelings like we were talking about. And, you know, I needed a release or a way to forget those. So, I kind of gravitated to the wrong things and the wrong people. And that's why I feel it's so important, especially for kids and even as adults, but especially because, we are a product of what we were around as children and what, we
Product
were
of our
exposed
environment.
to. So, I kind of gravitated to the wrong things just because I wanted a release. And then when we look at as adults, like people get into addictions, whether it be drugs, alcohol, sex addictions, gambling, different things, because that is a way to escape from the things that really, those underlying issues that are really bothering them. So, going back to the childhood thing, like I feel like I just had so much inner turmoil and so much unresolved feelings and feelings I didn't even understand. So, it just created a lot of stuff within inside of me and, you know, made me act out and seek, a lot of negative type things going forward.
Nah, and you know what? I appreciate you sharing that. And ironically, that's literally what we're talking about today is vulnerability.
Mm.
Vulnerability in men. And just like you owned it, you fully owned everything that you just said. That is the only way, in my opinion, that I feel like a man can truly be vulnerable and actually have strength in the vulnerability. Not like boo-hoo, like oh, like crying at everybody and complaining. Like that's not what we're talking about. We're talking
Yeah.
about, hey, I put in the work. in the background, the shadow work that I know as a man I had to do, whether it's going to therapy and hitting the gym, whatever it is, you feel like you need to get better at dealing with specific feelings and emotions and really having that self control over yourself. No, I couldn't agree more. So I appreciate you sharing that.
And to real quick to what you said, right? Like you mentioned the word weak. And, growing up in the era that I did, it was kind of, that was the thing. Like you didn't talk about certain things. And especially as a boy or a young man, you were told, man up, shake it off, things like that. And if you did talk about those things, you were considered weak. That was a sign of weakness. And it was such a, we were lied to because a lot of men or young boys, adolescents, whatever, we were forced those things and led to believe all that was true, that that was weakness. And you didn't talk about that. And that's, to use a term like sissy stuff or gay or whatever terms they wanted to use back then. But that's so not true. I mean, it took me most of my life to realize that it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength to be able to talk about things. And it's hard, obviously, for a kid. But as I've gotten older, and especially when I started my you know uh, journey of growth the last 4 years or something, I've realized that it's a sign of strength that you're able to be um, process things and express yourself. Like that's a sign of strength and a sign of intelligence that you're able to learn to understand yourself, process it, and communicate it to other people,
100%.
and not project your own BS onto
Yeah.
other people. Do some kind of shadow work on yourself and understand yourself. But as a kid, again, when you're kind of indoctrinated into this way of thinking that that's weakness and men don't do that, and you're told all these things, be macho, be tough, shake it off. You're kind of trained to not do those things. It's kind of like you're just shutting down and internalizing everything. And I thought that was normal, but clearly it wasn't. And I wound up suffering.
Well,
I
yeah. I
wound up
mean,
suffering
how could you
for
not? Good when
yeah, I
you're
wound up
indoctrinated
suffering.
into just thinking like that's okay and that's the norm. Like you don't know
Yeah,
any other way.
and as I was saying, I wound up suffering behind that, that thinking or that, way of being brought up for 35, 40 years or more. So, yeah, knowing what I know now, if I could go back, I would have been the one speaking up like, no, this isn't cool. Like, we need to talk
Right.
about this, like, and if you as an adult can't allow me to talk about this, then there's something wrong with you. But, we weren't allowed to question things like that back then.
Yeah. It was just, hey, fall in line, follow the protocol.
Yeah, shake it
If you're
off,
not with
be a
it,
man,
yeah, get the hell out of here.
get over it, all that. But go ahead.
That's good stuff. I mean, I've gone through similar experiences as well. Just, if I had to like summarize my childhood, now, first off, I'm not going to bring up my mother because I promised her I won't. She's like, don't fucking bring me up. I was like,
Well,
Mom, I love you. I was like, I'm not going to bring you up in any
I was
negative
married
light.
to her. I
So we're
already
not going to
know.
do it. But
I was married to
no,
her. I
I
already
mean,
know.
she's a good girl.
And again, it ain't no shade on her. She was a great mom. Like she picked up a lot of slack for when I was on my bullshit. So
No, I mean, I wouldn't
I give
trade her
her
for any other
all the
mother.
credit.
I told her that.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Just my experience. I don't know. Like, even as a young kid, like, I was really, I don't want to say confused, but like really just quiet. And I would really like just sit there and observe everything. And I'm like, really just trying to take everything in terms of like how the world worked. I mean, obviously, you know, you weren't always around and stuff like that. Popping back and in, back and forth. Like, obviously, that wasn't the easiest thing to deal with. But um, being the oldest, a lot of things fell to me naturally. And, I embraced that role easily. Like, the responsibility, um, looking after everybody. Obviously, I have younger brothers. For those of you that don't know that, two younger brothers. So playing the big brother role, that was nothing to me. I was like, yeah, 100%, with the best big brother ever. run this shit, run the house, at least while Pops is away. And that was my whole mentality. But I mean, even becoming a young adult and young man, like there was a lot of shit that I realized I didn't work on either. And if I'm being vulnerable, I had a crash out in my mid 20s where, shit went sideways. Was in a long-term relationship, engaged. I mean, had the car, convertible, drop top, two good jobs. We're both making over six figures. Everything was cake. Great setup, on spot, nothing to worry about. And I didn't realize that a lot of the shit that I didn't process as an adolescent and as a young, teenager and young adult, it caught up with me and it hit like a fucking brick wall. I'm talking, drinking all the time. I went to therapy for it. Um, it was just a lot of shit. And obviously I can look back on it now and laugh. Because it's all in retrospect. But during it, like I was really having a rough time. And it brings up an interesting point because with my partner at the time, I was vulnerable and I would try to communicate and talk about these different things that I was going through. And, a lot of it was upsetting. And, I feel like she definitely looked at me different after the way I was opening up. It was a lot of painful shit. So when I would open up, it wouldn't come from a place of strength, kind of like what we're talking about. Like you can be vulnerable as a man, but it has to come from a place of strength and ownership. And there was a lot of stuff I was still running away from at the time. And I wasn't trying to own the situation because it was too vulnerable to even bring up and talk about, let alone take ownership of
You were probably coming from a place of anger at that time. You were still, you haven't
it. Yeah.
processed that stuff, and you were coming from a place of anger. And look, I was listening to what you said, and it kind of goes back to last week. You know, I did you and your brother, definitely a disservice with that. And again, I have to own that. That's one of my biggest regrets in life. And it upsets me. And I apologize because I did you a huge disservice, especially you as the oldest, because like you said, you had to take on more of a leadership role and kind of the man of the house when I wasn't around.
Yeah, but
And
you got, I don't mean
I
to
did
interrupt you, but you got to understand I was built for that. And there was a reason
I
why
get
everything
I
played out.
get that, but
And I don't want you to ever again, like beat yourself up about that because it's about forgiveness. Like I was angry for a very long time, but I realized it just had an epiphany point. I'm the only one that's fucking suffering. No one else is angry.
yeah,
Everyone else is living their life and they're trying to get better and move on. Like I'm over here fucking just pissed off for what?
yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
I get it, but also, like I said, I did you a huge disservice. I understand, you and your brother, but especially you because you were the oldest, so more fell on you. And I get it that you, like you say, you were built for that and all, but you know, realistically, you may be built for it, but you shouldn't have had to take that stuff on. And kind of talking about us, being able to talk as, young kids or adolescents and stuff like that. Like even though I was there, I wasn't there all the time. And, there was times where you guys needed me and, I like I said, did you a disservice. And, I can't, there's no way to make up for that. You know what I mean? The only way I can make up for that is to be a better father and a better person now and try to be there for you and your brother now.
We're
And,
making up for it
but
right now.
yeah,
Literally.
absolutely. But I needed to say that because I did, and even though I kind of knew that, like hearing you say stuff like that, it just makes me kind of realize more, you know what I mean? But again, you know, what I can do is be better going forward. We talked about it last week. I've lived so much of my life looking back and regrets and what ifs and all these other things
Yeah, and
that
that's the past.
I ruined my future, my present, and my future wasting so much time looking back. So again, I just want you to know that, I do apologize. If I could go back and change certain things, I would. But, I definitely did you a disservice as far as that. And, again, your issues manifested later due to some of my mistakes. You know what I mean?
I
So
mean, listen,
again,
I'm just
I
grateful they
apologize.
even manifested at all. Because what? Then I would have got into even a longer relationship, potentially married, kids, fucking, and then I'm gonna crash out. That would have been even worse. So I'm
Well,
grateful it happened when it did, and a lot of those experiences like shaped me into who I am today. So do I
absolutely.
regret it?
And I
No.
talk
Was
about
it
that all
was
the
it
time.
painful? Yes, but even though I'm your son, there reaches a point in a man's life where he can't point the finger and be like, "Oh, okay, oh my dad did this to me," like, or my mom did this to me, whatever. You got to take ownership and accountability, which is stuff we've been talking about anyway, and be like,
Yeah.
"Listen, I'm responsible for me. In order to improve my own life, this falls directly into my hands. Like manifest destiny. Am I going to own it? Am I going to move forward? Or am I going to stay stuck in the past and just be like, oh, well, fuck this person, fuck that person? Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. And I mean, after that, that's exactly what I did. I mean, just got to keep it pushing.
Yeah, I get it, but again, we're supposed to, again, generational trauma, like we were talking about last week, we touched on a little bit today. We pass that stuff on without even knowing. And it's kind of what you were saying, because I basically passed the same thing on to you, and you wound up living the same thing, just different circumstances, but the same thing, because everything you're talking about that you went through because of my mistakes are the stuff that I went through because of my parents' mistakes. And it's just
Well,
like
you got to
it
cut yourself some
perpetuates
slack
itself.
too. Like, you guys were also set up to fail too. And
Yeah.
then,
Well,
not
that's what
even
I'm
bringing up
saying. And
not even
that's what
bringing
I'm,
up mommy, but some of the stuff she told me about as well, obviously leaving details out of it completely. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, I mean,
some of the shit, it's even a miracle that, you guys are still here and
it,
alive and breathing. I'm like, I don't know if I could deal with that.
yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And knowing what I know now, if I could go back and do it again, it would probably be much different. But like you were kind of getting into, there's no coincidences. Like everything happens for a reason. You kind of touched on it, like you were built for that. I feel like I was built for the stuff that I went through too. I mean, it was painful as hell, and I went through things that, and I'm not patting myself on the back or trying to make myself better than the next person, but I know for a 100% fact that most people wouldn't be able to overcome the things that I've overcome. Like just the trauma from childhood, the addiction part, the jail part, the being homeless in Kensington, like for on and off for a couple of years. Like, I mean, sleeping out whole, like certain people they just would never, it would have broke them. And it might have broke me for a time, but it didn't, like it had me down, I should say. It knocked
Oh,
me
for
down
sure.
and beat me down, but it never could keep me down. And you know, maybe I wouldn't have, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying, if I would have had the right environment younger, maybe I wouldn't. But again, there's no coincidences and everything happens for a reason. It's God's plan. And he knew that, like you said, we could carry that and we can get through it. And there were the trials and tribulations that we had to go through to come out the other side and be the people that we are today. So it's funny, I always say, like, I wouldn't change things. And it's extra funny because of what you were just talking about. The only things that I would change, because I'm proud of what I've overcome, who I've turned into from where I
You
started.
should be.
But the only things I would change are the pain that I brought to people that I love, like you and your brother, you know, my brothers, my sister, my dad, my mom, those people, my grandfather, like the pain that I caused them and the sleepless nights and the generational trauma that I passed on to you and your brother, they're the only things that I would change. As far as the other stuff, I'm glad it worked out the way it did because
Good.
it made me who I am. But if I could change back, just go back and change anything, it would just be the parts of the people that I hurt, and that's pretty much it.
Well, here's a different perspective for you too, because let's say, obviously, hypothetically, you did go back and change that,
Mm.
but you're taking different pain away from people you love, which is great, but a lot of a lot of growth comes from pain too. And this is what I tell, especially, some young bulls I talk to in HVAC and construction, not trying to be like unk status, be like, listen here, kid, but, putting them on because they'll ask me questions and stuff like that. Um, pain is what builds a man, especially like killing that inner boy and, from adolescent and going into manhood in particular, like you're just going to go through a lot of hard shit
Yeah.
realistically. And I mean, it only gets harder as you get older as well. More responsibilities, throw a relationship in there, throw, a job in there, throw kids. Oh, you're trying to hit the gym too? Okay. Oh, you're trying to eat healthy? It literally just keeps stacking up continuously. So, it's a different beast for each level that you hit and get through, but ultimately it just never stops. So that pain, as much as it sucks, something I learned is it's necessary for growth.
Well, it's funny that you say this too, because, I was actually, well, today, obviously, and this isn't to bring, my religion into the conversation, but obviously we know that right now as we talk, we're in the holy month of Ramadan, and I'm fasting, and
Yeah.
what we're supposed to do, we fast, and we also read the Quran, and I watch different lectures or different things throughout the day when I have time while I'm fasting to take my mind off it and improve my connection. But it's funny too because I was watching something today, and it was basically saying the same thing you're saying, that pain is a necessary thing. Like, people don't realize that the resilience that comes from experiencing pain, it sharpens you and it makes you more resilient and it makes you, more unbreakable. And they equate it, to working out. I know you're into working out and all that, that when you go to the gym, it hurts, especially the next day. Your body's sore, you go through pain and everything. But it gets greater later. And as the time goes on, you stay consistent and you keep overcoming that pain and keep pushing and overcoming that pain. Now it becomes easier and your body starts to develop. You get the reward on the other side. And again, going back, and I brought up the religion part because there's a verse in the Quran that says, with hardship comes ease. And that's really what we're talking about. Like, you become so resilient and, keep overcoming things. You're sharpening. It's like building a muscle. You work out in the gym, you're building your muscles up, but you're also building, that inner fortitude, your resilience, you're building that up. You're strengthening it where now these little things that pop up, you've overcome so much, it becomes easier. Just like in the gym, your first day working out, you're not going to, kill it. But months down the line, now you're maxing out. Your max out is way higher. Your reps are way higher because it becomes easier. So it really ties into that. And like I said, the verse that I was quoting, with hardship comes ease. It gets easier. It gets easier to overcome those little challenges where when little things pop up,
100%.
it doesn't, you're like, oh, okay, no problem, I could deal with that. I've been through so much worse. It sharpens you, and it sharpens you, like I said, your inner fortitude, and it sharpens, your inner strength, your spirit. So it's just like working out another muscle, you know
Yeah, no, I definitely
but
agree.
it's funny because, like I said, I was watching and reading that stuff today,
You
and
said that was
somebody
today.
shared it. Yeah, literally today, this afternoon.
Oh wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I mean, I agree. I think the misconception is like people people think like once I get stronger, it's not going to hurt anymore. It's still going to hurt. Like in the beginning, it's like getting hit by a brick wall. You're like, what the fuck? You're disoriented. You don't know what's going on. But you know, once you get easier, a couple months, couple years go by, that same obstacle and same problem, you're like, it's a fly landing on your
Exactly.
shirt. You're like, you're
Exactly.
just so much more equipped to handle that.
You become resilient.
Yeah, exactly. Like the same issues don't hurt as much. They still hurt, but definitely not on the same level and same tier as they did before. I agree with that 100%. Nice. So here's another one, right? And this one was kind of interesting. Let me check this out. So this one too. I mean, this is basically what we've been talking about already, but strength and vulnerability must coexist. And I think that's not talked about enough either. So what are your
Well,
thoughts on that?
would you say strength and vulnerability?
Yeah,
What do you mean
strength
exactly?
and vulnerability at the same time. I mean, we kind of mentioned it earlier in terms of at least my personal opinion, you have to be vulnerable from a point of strength with ownership and accountability.
Mm.
But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would disagree too. So,
Well, I mean, it depends. I think everybody's different, but I feel like vulnerability is a strength if if it's used the right way, especially if you're dealing with other people. Um, for instance, let's go into the relationship dynamic. Um, Say you're with somebody and you're with the wrong person and you're vulnerable with them, they could start to judge you, kind of like how you were saying with your past relationship, kind of look at you different, or like, because they have that mindset, a man's supposed to be strong, everything like that. If you start to be vulnerable, they could sense it as weakness. And, again, the judgment part could come in. So if you're with the wrong person, it could be used, it could be viewed as weakness. But if you're with the right person, where you guys are pouring into each other, and when one person's down, you lift the other one up. You're going to have feelings that arise, and if you're with the right person, whether you or go to them or they come to you with something that's bothering them and they're being vulnerable, if you're with the right person, they're going to listen, they're going to empathize, and they're going to view that as a characteristic of strength. The fact that that you're adult enough and advanced enough and comfortable within yourself to be able to share that and still have the confidence, like, hey, I'm a man, but I have feelings too, and I can express them to you. And again, if you're with the right person, they're going to, listen, they're going to empathize, give you feedback, and try to help you process through that and work on getting over it and becoming a better version of yourself. And then on the flip side, the reciprocation where you have to do the same thing for them. But again, it depends on who you're dealing with. If you're not dealing with the right people, that
yeah,
vulnerability can be
they're
viewed
just not going to get it.
as weakness or a negative, but then again, I feel like that if a person views it that way, that's really a them issue and not a you issue,
Oh,
because
100%.
maybe
I mean,
they're
it
not
tells you
at the
more
place,
about them
yeah, they're
than it
not in
does
the
you.
place where they need to be, and they're not able to process. Because again, going back to the very beginning when we start talking about, like, just for my own, situation, I had so much stuff that I was dealing with as a young boy, adolescent, and I didn't know, kind of like you said, I was confused. I didn't know how to process. I had so
Yeah.
many feelings,
You
and
didn't even know
I
it was
was
going to be an
told,
issue.
yeah, and I was told that those same things we started with, toughen up, shake it off, be a man, man up, all these sayings. So, I'm so kind of like confused, like, how do I deal with this? But yet I have these feelings which are valid, and see, that's the problem. I didn't know they were valid. Like, I thought I was crazy. So like I'm having all this stuff going on inside of me, but yet I can't talk to anybody about it. I have nobody to, you know, vent to and express what I'm going through. So I'm internalizing everything. And, you know, it's just really tough. But again, um, finding out many years later, as I did, that that's what you need to do. You know, we're human. We have emotion. I don't care if you're, you know, a kid, if you're 90 years old, if you're the weakest person in the world, you know, physically, or the strongest person physically. We all have feelings and emotions, which are, you know, valid. And there's a reason why we have those feelings. And we should be able to talk about those. And yeah, I know, you know, the whole macho mindset, oh, that's some weak shit or whatever, but that's corny. Like that narrative is played out. Like in my opinion, like we should be able to talk about anything. And if you're around the right people, whether it be a friendship, a relationship, a marriage,
Yeah, they'll
whatever,
totally
mom or
understand.
dad, doesn't matter what the dynamic is, you should be able to, you know, talk about your feelings and process things and be able to be vulnerable and be able to be allow other people to be vulnerable with you because we're humans. Like we have feelings. Like everybody's, if you're feeling something, it's valid. There's a reason for it. So yeah, I mean, it's just crazy the way, you know, we've been taught certain things we've been led to believe that were wrong, and the way a lot of people view things, you know, as weakness that are really strengths and as strengths that are really weaknesses, you know, in my opinion.
Yeah, ego. I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with going to the gym. Um, you know, a relatively, moderate gym guy, I would say, if I had to categorize it. But, those guys on steroids, oh, I'm fucking ripped. Like, that is the total opposite of what is strength. Like, yes, okay, you want to be healthy, you want to be in shape, which is great. But, strength is emotional intelligence. Strength is having self control and self discipline, being like, damn, I really don't feel like going to the gym today. I really don't feel like going to work. But you're like, you know what? Fuck it. I know this is what I need to do. I know this is part of my schedule. I'm just, you know, do what I got to do regardless of how I'm feeling. Now, it's not neglecting those emotions, but it's realizing, like, hey, I know I don't really feel up to the task right now. You're acknowledging it, you're taking control and ownership of it, but then you're also taking action on it and be like, hey, you know what? I'm in control of my emotions. My emotions don't control me. And that's kind of how, you know, over the past couple of years, I learned to process it. And it's definitely not an easy thing to do at all. Like, you got to take a lot of time with yourself and be like, fuck, man, like, I really want to try and master this. But and I fail all the time too. Like, I don't sit here and act like I'm Mr. Perfect because I know I'm not. But, there's some days where I fail. Like, I know that's the right thing to do, but there's some days where I'm like, damn, yeah, I ain't doing shit at all. And I know, like, that's an accountability thing with myself. And I don't beat myself up for it, but I'm just like, you know what? Okay, didn't really work out. Let's not beat ourselves up about it. But tomorrow, let's try again. Let's get back on the horse and,
Mhm.
give it another go. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean that's my attitude. It's really self betterment, and just like we're having these conversations, pop, and talking about, especially in this episode, like vulnerable shit. We're taking ownership of it, and we can talk about it in an honest, non-judgmental way, which is you would think how it should be anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but we're growing too, and this is why I love doing this too, because
Mhm.
people are viewing us, and we're getting the followers, and all right, yeah, that's great. you know like and subscribe, by the way. But it's not even about that. It's about helping other people, providing as much value as possible in terms of them immediately improving their life. And it's still in different principles that we talk about, but this helps us too, believe it or not. And whoever is watching right now, it's this is a form of therapy. And I get so rewarded for being able to at least help one person. Like, every episode that we drop, regardless of viewers or followers and all that extra shit, if we were at least able to help one single person overcome some trauma or, just being like, hey, man, you're not alone. Like, we've gone through our obstacles too. It's rewarding. It's all worth it. I would do this for free indefinitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny too, because you took the, as I started smiling because you took the word right out of my mouth as you were talking about it. Like, this is therapeutic and it is really good. Like, it's good to talk about it just in general, these topics. And, again, like you said, the goal is to help ourselves, help other people. But then even from kind of going into what we were talking about, where, I was kind of taking ownership of my flaws with you and your brother and stuff, like it's therapeutic for us, father and son dynamic, because we have been through a lot. Our family is, each of us has been through stuff personally, like heavy stuff, and then our family as a unit, has been through a lot of heavy stuff. So it's therapeutic for us, and it feels good. I like talking about it. It makes me a better person. It helps make you a better person. And like you said, the main goal is to help other people. And again, we're not on here preaching. We're not saying, listen, you got to do this and listen to us and be like, because we're just trying to be better people ourselves. Like I said, we all have our own journey. Things that we've been through, my journey might be a little heavier, but I'm also older and have experienced a lot more. And, even though I wasn't around at all times, I've tried to shelter you guys from some of that, myself by, I grew up in the inner city. I bought a house, obviously, where you and your brother grew up in New Jersey, and try to just give you all a better, like, try to shelter you from some of the stuff that I went through.
Yeah, no.
But,
And like,
you know,
I get the
but
thought
our,
process. Like, why wouldn't you?
yeah,
But, at the
exactly.
same time, I feel like a lot of shit was unavoidable as, you know, regardless of your heart being in the right place. And,
Yeah.
even my mother too,
Well,
like,
yeah,
you
it
guys
was
didn't,
bound to manifest itself because
yeah,
I had so much, like I said earlier, turmoil within myself and so much unresolved trauma and issues that were never dealt with. So they were going to manifest themselves. But real quick, I wanted to get back to, you had said something about, failing and stuff like that. And you said, yeah, I fail someday. I'll tell you honestly, I fail at something every single day. I can get on here and say, I'm doing this. I worked on myself. I've been sober. I got a good job, great relationship, this and that. But I fail in some way, shape, or form every single day. And I wanted to kind of touch on that because I think people, forget that like this life is hard, like I was saying last week. And like, I think the biggest issue is for all of us, like we all got haters and people who, oh yeah, F him or they
yeah,
hate on
but,
you or what you're doing.
you know,
But I think our biggest enemy is our own minds. Kind of talking about what you were talking, getting into what the whole topic, we don't express or, release the things that we're going through emotionally or stuff that we're struggling with. And then, kind of feeling, because I don't know, and, we had this vulnerability topic, and I kind of talked to you about this prior. Like I just been struggling with certain things. Like I'm good, as far as the addiction part. Like that's not an issue for me. I got a good job. I got a great relationship. Great relationship with you and
yeah,
your
I mean, there's a
brother,
ton to be
with my other
blessed.
family members. But I'm
Yeah,
just struggling personally with certain things. Like you kind of touched on the fitness thing. Like I've been wanting to get back to working out so much, and it's just like I'm really struggling with my motivation. Like I'm kind of pulled in so many directions because I do have a full-time job. I, you know, I have a good relationship where we constantly talk about things. So those things take up so much time, and then you got to sleep, and then stuff like this. And I was kind of telling you and your brother, like, there's other passions that I have that I really want to, invest more time into. And then I want to work out, but like this motivation, like I have all these things I want to do, but I've been struggling so much with prioritizing and like time management as far as like
yeah,
becoming more disciplined and regimented with my schedule. Like it's been really been a struggle for me. And I wanted to touch on that. We're talking about being vulnerable, and just be vulnerable. Like we all fail every day. I don't care who
Yeah,
you are.
but
Like I fail, I
I mean,
fall
it's not just
short.
vulnerable. It's emotional intelligence and having awareness in yourself. Be like, damn, you know what? I am struggling with this. Like, there's nothing wrong to just come out and be like, hey, you know what? I'm having a tough time with this. That that alone just says you acknowledge it and you want to get better in these areas. Like, how the fuck is that a bad thing? But
No,
society will
I'm
tell
not
us
saying
like,
that, but what I'm saying is I touched on the mind part. I
oh
think our
yeah,
mind is our biggest enemy. I wasn't finished with that, where like
okay, my
I'm
bad.
kind of no, I'm not saying that towards you, but I feel like our mind screws us more than anything. Forget outside forces and people having their opinions and this and that, that I have so many things that I want to do. And like my heart isn't like such good intentions, so many good things. It comes from a place of love, like all these ideas of what I want to do with my spare time, with my passions, and with this thing with us, with work, with my relationship,
Right.
just being a better person, helping people that, my mind is in the right place. My heart is in the right place, but my mind just constantly screwing me. Like, you know, when I don't do something and I fall short, like I said, every day I fall short, but like in some area I'll fall short. And then it's like I'm constantly like, why didn't you like I'm internalizing and like my mind is constantly
It's like, oh,
I'm
you,
beating
you
myself.
piece of shit. Like
Yeah,
you
like
want to get better. Yeah.
and then it's like that, or I'll be like, you said you were going to do this, like in my head, like you said you were going to do this, you still didn't do it. And it's like I'm so hard on myself, but it's like I feel like I'm being pulled in all these different directions. And then, it hasn't helped lately with the switch and shifts. It's only been 2 weeks. So it's like I'm
Yeah.
still,
No, you were telling me about that.
trying to get that. And I don't have a set schedule. Like I want to become more regimented and have like a set schedule. Like, all right, I come home from work at this time because I work third shift. I pray, I go to sleep, I do this, I do that. I get up at this time, I work out, I put, an hour or two into my passions, like I don't know if we talked about it, but I want to start this kind of little clothing brand, like t-shirt, hoodie kind of brand. I want to do that. I want
Yeah.
to advance this, our brand with this. I have stuff that I talked to your brother about that we were kicking around. Me and Angela down the road want to start a business, and then I also want to, like, I have a lot of friends that do outreach for the homeless in Kensington, the addicted and, the unhoused. And I want to, kind of start doing that more. But I just feel like
Yeah.
there's
It's
not
all
enough
positive.
time. There's not enough time in the day. And my mind, I'm constantly like struggling with that. And like my mind, I'm beating myself up. And, then I kind of get like, overwhelmed and that I'm tired. And it's like, even though I want to do all these things, I'll have free time and then I just want to lay around.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just like a constant
Because you're
struggle. And
overwhelmed.
I'm
I mean,
trying to
obviously,
find like I'm trying to find this
I
perfect
experience a lot of the same shit.
yeah, I'm trying to find this perfect balance and like kind of a regiment and a schedule. And it's really just been a struggle lately. Like I said, I'm good with all the other stuff. I'm good with the relationship, the job, staying sober, like all that stuff, like that's not a problem for me. Like I'm very disciplined. My faith, I'm constantly, I pray all my prayers on time. I'm, immersed in that. And I could get better at that as well. And that's why, taking this month of Ramadan, I'm trying to be better. I'm fasting every day. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And sometimes it's overwhelming because I want to do more. Like, and we talked about this before, like you're doing so much, but you feel like you're not doing enough. And I know you expressed that to me before. Like
Yeah.
you feel
I
like I
mean,
could do more.
from my experience, like top performers in whatever industry that they're in and whatever career that they're in, they never feel like they're doing enough. They
Yeah,
always want to do more and more, but it's a whole mindset shift when you realize sometimes doing more means doing less. And
yeah.
it's almost like an addition by subtraction kind of thing. You think like,
No,
oh,
I
well,
get
I'm
that.
gonna put all this shit on my plate and max out my schedule to where every second of every day is like consumed. No, it's not about that. Like you're gonna be way more efficient if you just keep it super simple. And I mean, as far as a regiment, like the follow through is the biggest thing. Like you could literally open up a Google Excel like spreadsheet and just be like, okay, boom, wake up, bathroom, breakfast, 9 to 5, like whatever your schedule is structured as, it's literally that simple. The biggest part is what, one time, maybe 2, 3 hours initially setting up the regiment and then just follow through. It's literally that simple.
Yeah,
Way easier said than done, but um,
definitely.
it's something that I struggle with as well. I mean, going back to what was it, late last year? I mean, I was working 2 jobs, like between both jobs, it was like 70 hours between both. You're like, yeah, you ready to do the podcast? I'm sitting there like, fucking half asleep because I don't even know what's going on. I'm like in dream
I
world.
remember I remember the one Sunday we were doing it at your apartment and you weren't even awake and I'm banging on your door.
Yeah, I'm
Coffee.
like, like I'm running off like 4 hours of sleep. I'm like, yeah, let me put some coffee on. And then I'm like, what the fuck, man? But it was just, even back then, I realized like I was trying to do a lot. I was trying to get ahead, and my heart was in the right place. Like, hey, making money, like, oh yeah, I can balance it out. But in
Hmm.
reality, it was just way too much going on at once. It was just,
Yeah,
it was a lot to handle. But now I have one job, and I could still get the 70 hours a week if I wanted to. But
yeah,
now I know, like, okay, if one week I'm really feeling it, I'll go
yeah,
to management and be like, hey, I'm feeling like 55, I'm feeling like 60. Like, I don't got to go as crazy, um, compared late to last year. So it's a lot more flexibility in that regard. But I mean, I'll be honest too. I've been slacking in the gym as well. I've been more fixated on just getting my diet locked in, which it has been, and just different things like working on the podcast, managing work schedules, making sure the apartment's clean, like very, very simple, basic stuff that once I master that, then I can introduce a little bit more onto my plate.
yeah.
But I think it's
And,
mastering the simple stuff first. Then you can introduce, okay, like you were saying, clothing brand. Oh,
and a
okay,
big
hey, let's do a food drive for the homeless, whatever it may be.
Yeah, a big part of that too, not just for me, but for you, for anybody. I feel like, and I've learned this, that you need those mental health or like me days where, and it's funny too, because, me and Angela are trying to get finances in order, start saving money, so on and so forth. But she yells at me, some not yells at me, but she'll get on me some days and be like, and I'll be like, yeah, I want to take a day off today. She'll be like, for what? I'm like, I just want a day off. Like I need a day off. Like I'm
Yeah, she'd be
mentally
like,
exhausted.
fuck
And
that. She'd be like, get
she
your ass in
don't,
there,
like I
make that
said,
money.
when I say she gets on me, she don't get on me, but she's looking at it from a money perspective. And I always say, and she agrees with me, like money isn't everything, you know, like you have to take care of yourself because as I was just saying earlier, like sometimes you're pulled in so many directions and you have so many things that you want to do and you're trying to do and you're trying to serve all these different areas of your life that it really does become overwhelming and just get mentally burned out. Like sometimes like my job is physical, but sometimes it's not even the physical burnout. It's just like the mental exhaustion, like mental burnout. And I just need like a mental health day. And even if it's a day where I don't do anything but rest and just take time for me or whatever, like we need that as people. Like people don't, you have people who don't even use like their PTO time and shit. Like, oh, I got
Yeah, because they feel
37
guilty and
days of
shit. I'm like,
PTO. Like,
no,
yeah, what the hell's wrong with you? You know how many days
nope,
I got
I'm
left of
using all
PTO?
that.
I got zero right now.
I learned my lesson the hard way because I used to be that guy, especially in my early and mid 20s. Like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna be the perfect fucking employee. Like, no missed days, sir. Like a Boy
Yes.
Scout. And I'm like, dude, fuck that, man. Like,
But
it
you know what
literally, it's
happens
my
then?
time. I earned it. I'm entitled to the time. I'm gonna take
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely. People
total
don't.
different
I
perspective
can't
now.
stand when I hear people say shit like that. Like it makes no sense. Like you have to have time for yourself. You have to have time to reset and mentally declutter or
Right.
emotionally declutter yourself because shit gets overwhelming. It really does. Now, I'm not gonna lie, there's times where I get lazy and I just do it just because, like, but then again, I'm human, and that's the days where, like I said, I fail on something every day. I might fail with that. Like, I just don't feel like going today, you know. But it is what it is. But also too, I don't know if we touched on this recently, but I've really been struggling. As we know, the weather has sucked. You know, this winter, we've had mild winters the last few years, hasn't really been bad, but this winter has absolutely sucked, as you know. You know, two big snowstorms, a couple of little ones, been freezing cold all winter. And I've have all my life suffered with seasonal depression. Like, you know,
Yeah,
and
I mean, well, that's a real
it's the
thing.
whole connecting thing, like grounding, going outside, grounding, getting
Yeah, you
sunlight,
can't do
you
that.
know, and it has just been a rough winter. Like, I am so looking forward to. I've been through a lot of challenges the first couple months of this year. This winter has absolutely sucked. I'm never have I don't think I've ever really craved, because as a kid it's great when it snows, you know, you have off school or this and that. But as an adult, it absolutely sucks. Nobody wants to go outside and clean the
Yeah, you're
cars
like,
off,
fuck this. I still got to
shovel,
go to work. I got to
yeah,
drive. Like,
driving. So I don't think I can't remember a time where I've craved warm weather in spring so badly. Like, I've
yeah,
really been suffering with seasonal depression this year, like really, really bad. So I don't know about you, but that's really been an issue for me this year. Like, it like, and that's a real thing. Like, that's why people go outside and they do grounding and go out and spend time in the sun. The
that's
sun gives you
why
energy, gives you vitamins.
that's why people have summer homes and vacation homes as well, because they could just be like, all right, deuces, I'm out.
Yeah,
But no,
yeah, just like
I mean, I totally agree. I wouldn't
I would.
necessarily say I deal with that. My if I do feel like that at all, like down in the dumps or depressed, like for me, it's super random. Like I'll be on like 3 month highs where I'm like, dude, I'm fucking locked in, and
Yeah,
everything is like just Gucci. But the minute I stay like stagnant, I feel like that's where it could come back for me. So for me, it's a little bit different. But no, I've heard multiple people talk about seasonal
well,
depression. So
that's always been an issue for me. Like, ever since I can remember, it's been an issue. I do not like winter at all. Can't stand it. And like I was saying, like, we need sunlight. You know, Angela had even bought me a one of those, they call it like a sad light or a happy light. It's like a UV light. It's like an iPad, and like you basically put it in front of your face, and it gives you the same effect as the sunlight.
oh, really?
But
Yeah, I've never even
yeah,
seen that.
something was wrong with it, and we had to send it back or whatever. But I can't wait till the sun. But like, it's killing me. Like, I do not like cold, and it
And
really,
today was
I've
nice as hell.
always suffered
So
from that.
it's getting there. Soon,
But yeah,
pops.
like, huh?
I said soon. It was nice out today, so we're getting there.
It's supposed to be 70 degrees by next weekend.
Yeah, boom. There you go.
Yep. So I can't wait for that. But yeah, I've been struggling with that, man. Like I said, the major things have been good. Like, I can't really complain about those, but it's just been like, the motivation, the feeling overwhelmed and pulled in different directions and not doing enough, and then the seasonal, the weather thing. So, I've just really been struggling with that. But, like I said, the major things are good. And there's always going to be something, life's going to show up and, hit us when we least expect it anyway. There's always going to be something.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
mean,
everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows all the time. So,
yeah, I mean, it's never going to be perfect,
yeah,
but yeah, I think it's just about you fall down as many times as you need to in order to improve at it, and you know that's ultimately what it is. Like looking stupid before you're like, hey, you know what? I've actually improved on this, and then you realize in
yeah,
yourself, like, damn, I'm proud of me, and then
yeah,
you have that aha
absolutely.
moment.
I
But
mean,
yeah, I mean, no one's. Uh,
when I look at everything as a whole, like, hey, I'm super proud, and I'm really happy at the progress that I've made and the growth, and the way my life has completely done a 180 in the last 3 years or so. But again, Yeah, I just maybe because I'm human, maybe it's me. I don't know. I can only speak for myself, but I just constantly have that feeling of where I'm struggling to not do enough, or I could do more. You know,
Perfectionist. That's
yeah,
how I am. I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, fuck no. Like, you could have did a great job, especially at work management. It's like, dude, you fucking killed this project. Like, awesome
yeah,
job, promotion. I'll be like, nah, you could have fucking did it way better. And like, I realized that in myself. I'm like, why?
mm,
It's because I want to be the best, right? And there's nothing wrong with that mentality, but you can't do it so much to where it becomes a detriment to your
mm,
mindset and just your psyche in general. Like, you have to be kind to yourself and the self-love aspect as well, which that's something I've been learning over the past couple of years. And
yeah,
there's been progress, but there's still a long way to go in terms of that, where I'm just accepting of different situations. But
yeah. And I know, like for me, like I know, like it's been a lot the last couple of weeks because I just changed the shift, so still adjusting to that, and now fasting for Ramadan. It's definitely I fast, a lot normally, but not every single day. So it's definitely not the easiest time because I'm trying to transition to the shift change and the whole sleep thing and kind of develop a schedule. And then you're fasting and like, you know, you want something and you can't eat, can't drink. So, it's a lot of adjustment right now, I should say. But again, there's Ramadan will be over in, roughly 20 days and I'll get adjusted to the shift. Then it's really more about just discipline and creating a schedule, creating a certain regimen for myself. And then things will fall into place. So, I kind of understand it. It's just not the easiest right now. You know what I
no,
mean?
shit
But
sucks. I
as
mean,
we talked about earlier, I mentioned that verse in the Quran, with hardship comes ease, so it's a little tough right now, but it will definitely get easier. It just really comes down to getting adjusted and then instilling the discipline factor of developing a schedule, a certain regimen, and kind of pushing myself to do certain things that I might not have the motivation to do.
no,
You
I
know,
couldn't agree more. And like, even going to military school, like during high school, that shit sucked. It was terrible. Like, I don't want to say it was terrible. Like, I made a lot of good friends, and there was a lot of networking I did, people from around the world, and just a leadership aspect. There was a lot of positive stuff I learned, but the regiment and just you got to be at a certain place at a certain time, like that shit sucked. But it set us up for success too, because you always
yeah,
knew what you were wearing, clothes wise. You always knew where to be. You always knew what your schedule was. Like, everything was laid out for you to where you don't
yeah,
even have to fucking think about it. You're just
yeah.
like,
You just
okay,
follow it.
get dressed, be here, formation. All right, this is what you got going on. Fucking, whether you like it or not, mentally prepare. Like, it was all laid out. And if you take that same approach with a regiment and just go in a Google spreadsheet, boom, that the layout's already done for you.
Yeah,
And really, I mean, that's something I do. Like, I don't really have a schedule, but on my phone, I set my alarms. Like, I've even had people be like, dude, it's fucking 2 p.m. Like, why do you have alarm set? Be like, yo, don't ask questions. All right. They're my
yeah,
alarms, like, for a
yeah,
reason, whether it's a scheduled meal time, or I know
yeah,
at a specific time, like, okay, that's a reminder for me. My alarm just went off. I know I got
yeah.
to
I
get
do
ready
the
for
same thing.
work, or I know, I'm about to hit up the gym, like whatever it is. It's just a personal reminder for me.
Yeah, I
It's
do
the
the same
next
thing.
segment of my schedule for that day.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I do the same thing. I set alarms all the time, reminders, whatever, go on your calendar, all that.
Yeah, that
So I
working
just got to
nights,
get
like,
more. Yeah, it's like I said, that's the biggest thing because I haven't worked third shift in so many years. So
yeah.
it's a big adjustment. And, I don't even know if I'm tired, but I don't even know if I'm tired. Then it's like I'm tired and I come home from work
Yeah, but
and
you've been
I
up for
can't
so
sleep.
long that you're not tired anymore. You're just
Yeah,
fucking up.
it's so crazy. And then, it's only been 2 weeks, but I was out for 3 days the first week of it because I was sick. So it's just been like, so that kind of set me back because it was off 3 days, then the weekend, and then a snow day. It was like I didn't do it for a whole week, and then it was like readjusting all over. So yeah, it's been difficult, but I'll be all right. It's just again, adjusting, time management, discipline, just kind of instilling all those, and I'll be all right. Another thing I need to get back to is um you probably remember that I used to write, I was journaling and writing for,
Oh yeah.
3+ years. And I've kind of really, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself with that because I kind of fell off of it because I've been pulled in so many different directions. At one point I used to write every day, then it became like every week. And now, like, it's literally been, and I'm embarrassed when I think about it, it's been months. I haven't written once in months. And I'm like, what am I doing? Because I have literally over 3 years, 3.5 years worth of writing, like
Yeah, which is
like
wild.
stack of copybooks, just journaling and thoughts and daily entries. And I need to get back to that because that was a very big piece for me in turning things around and changing my life and doing the work on myself. Because it's amazing when you go back and you look, you can go back years obviously and look and like, wow, who is this person? But you can
Like,
even
what the
go
hell was
back a
I
month.
thinking?
You can even go back a month or two and see the growth. You see yourself changing and transforming through pages. It's amazing. And it was so therapeutic for me. But I got caught up with the job,
Well,
relationship
you got
and
better, and then
yeah,
you probably just got comfortable. You're like, yeah, I don't need
yeah.
that anymore.
But
But
I need to get back to that. I mean, it's something, I talked about this with you before, I want to publish it eventually, kind of edit it and publish it and stuff like that. But it's not even for that. Yeah, that's one part of it, but I want it to be just something I implement, going forward for the rest of my life, even if it's not every day, once a week, just how my week went, because it really is therapeutic, and you see the growth in yourself, and you can go back and see where you were, kind of flawed thinking and where you made mistakes, and it just helps so much. And even forget all that, just writing things down is a way of kind of what we were talking about. You're being vulnerable with yourself, you're expressing yourself, because even if you're not telling somebody else, you're writing it down on the page so it's a release. You're getting it out in some way. And it has really helped me so much in my journey. And I need to get back to that. So again, these are all things that I've been struggling with. And I just felt it was fitting because, if the topic talking about vulnerability, like, you know, just me being honest and being vulnerable and not afraid of what people think. If people are watching this, great. Their opinions are their opinions, positive or negative. Like, this is about me. I'm trying to become better and, you know, trying to open up and express things that are bothering me. And it helps me to kind of reflect on things and realize, like, hey, I'm struggling with this. I need to work on that. It's just awareness. We always talk about that.
yeah, I mean, there's always going to be core themes to every episode, but I mean, if anything, I think this episode in particular was awesome, just everything that was shared, but it highlights that we're a human too. We're not doing all this glamorous, like extra shit on social media that you see. Like, I want to create, but in an authentic way. That's why we say that
Yeah.
in the intro. This is
I mean,
authenticity. That's everything here. So to
yeah.
really highlight that we're normal people and like we're going through our own growth as well, and we hope that your personal journey becomes a part of our personal journey. It resonates with you and you could grow with us. That way we have, loyal listeners, a whole community behind our brand. Like, that's really what this is about, and everybody is helping everybody, getting back to old school, more traditional ways, but we're not on some selfish shit here. So I just wanted to take the time to say that too, because that's
Yeah,
real.
and me and you talked about it prior to, tonight. Um, we're trying to create dialogue. Like, we don't have a ton of followers. We don't have a ton of comments and feedback, but that's what we're trying to ignite. We're trying to spark that, thought and that interest where somebody listens to what we're talking about and they want to comment and they want to share what they're going on in their life, and kind of get it back and forth, and trying to start a conversation, and
Yeah, and
while
look,
it's
it's not
therapeutic.
like we want to force that either. We just want that organically. You either
Yeah,
resonate with the stuff
I
or you
want to hear
don't,
what
and
other
that's
people are
okay.
struggling with, because maybe something that somebody else is struggling with or going through is going to help me in my journey, and me helping, we're helping each other, it's reciprocal. So
No, I love that. You know what? I appreciate you guys. On that note, that's going to be a wrap to today's episode. But seriously, if the content resonates with you guys moving forward, leave a comment, like, subscribe. We really appreciate it. I mean, we don't do this for anything other than building a brand, building a community, and really just helping one another. Because I think the world really needs that, more of it anyway, moving forward, especially with all the chaos going on. So, seriously, thank you guys again for tuning in. Pops, I appreciate you as always. Awesome episode. And
you as
we're going to be
well.
back next week for another episode. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.